Still do not have a planner at the moment. I will start by taking attendance for the board. Austin Gruner,
Present.
Jim Barr,
Here.
Bob Romer,
Present.
and Mike Gore also present. Okay. So I think hopefully you all saw Don Lowe sent out. We did hire a new planner. I had the chance to meet with her during the interview process. Pam, I'm gonna get her last name on Harding, maybe. Anyway, she's absolutely terrific. It's really like we have lucked out and are very fortunate to have gotten her. She has extensive experience as the town planner in Holden for I think about 15 years, a number of roles in the planning department there. So Holden's slightly bigger than Bolton. I think it's around 20,000 people. And most recently, she's been in Worcester in a different planning office there. So she's going to start in early September, and we're very excited to have her. Me mostly because I realized how many emails the town planner gets, and they all come to me right now. So, so I'm happy to have her start. Okay, the first item of business tonight is a special permit hearing for Thomas Broomfield of 146 Still River Road, seeking a permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit for the property located on Assessor's Map 6A, Parcel 14. And I think I saw the Broomfields there, so if you guys want to say hi and give a little overview of the project.
Yeah, and my son David is here.
Hi to both.
For your information, that map and whatnot is 160 Still River Road, the property that we're talking about.
160 Still River Road. Okay, but you are 146 Still River Road?
Yeah, that's where my residence is.
Yep. Yep. So I believe the permit is for map 6A, parcel 14, right?
I don't know.
That's right.
Was that
A little overview on the project would be there's an existing dwelling where my uncle lives currently at 160, and we would like to build another dwelling on the land for myself and my wife and my daughter as a detached accessory house.
So I got I saw your application. So the house, so there's an existing house here. You probably can't see this, but this picture here, this is the existing house we're talking about here. Okay, so we're doing things a little bit backwards from how we normally do it. So in this case, there's an existing house on the property that you effectively want to turn into an ADU. Is that correct?
Want to turn to what?
An ADU, an accessory dwelling unit. That's what you see.
So we want to build the primary house, basically. That house that my brother lives in, we built in the 60s, and he currently can live there as long as he is alive. So that's I don't know, 1,000 or under 1,200 square feet, anyways.
Yep.
Which is what the accessory requirement is. So technically, you could say you got to build a primary house and bulldoze that one, then rebuild it. But that doesn't make sense.
I will not be saying that for sure. So I saw you had some proposals for what the new house is going to be between 2,100 and 3,000 square feet. And so the dimensions of the existing house are 928 square feet, I believe. So
I can look at it. It's been a while since I looked at all the paperwork there.
Yeah. So basically the thing that we need to conform to is the detached accessory apartment shall not exceed the lesser of 50% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling, or 1,200 square feet. And so if the new house is going to be over 2,000 square feet, then you'll be covered by that.
Right.
So the existing house, it has presumably septic there and water and all that. And are you building everything brand new and then tying the new house into that septic system, or are you kind of keeping this house separate?
I think we will put a new septic system in. That one we put in the '60s. It still works okay.
Mhm.
My brother and I installed it along with the contractor. So it's, as I say, it's still working, but I think we should put a new one in, and I'll get Bill Brookings to work on that design if this goes forward. You know, that would be
Yep.
one of the next steps. The water, that house is tied into the manufacturing plant we have there, which is a public water supply.
Okay.
So it's tested regularly. We could tie into that, or we could put a separate well. I haven't decided, or David hasn't decided yet. But it's obviously good water because it's tested regularly.
Yep. How about the driveway? Are they going to share the same driveway, the new house and the?
I think because it really doesn't, the 160, it's we're going back to the 50s and 60s, and my dad originally shared the driveway, and I think it would be worth shared the driveway between the company and the house. I think it would be worth putting a new driveway in.
Okay, so I'm looking at the map right now. So is 160 the Broomfield plant?
No, 164 is.
164. Okay.
Yeah.
And then as I'm looking on Google Maps here, the house is kind of like, if you're facing the Broomfield plant, is it kind of at the back left?
Well, yeah, but
Yes.
right, correct.
Okay. And so the house is the
160.
the accessory dwelling unit will be 160, but is 146 the address of what the new house will be?
No, that's the next property towards the traffic light, and that's where my wife and I reside.
Okay, so I think the 146 is that's your address on
That's just giving my address.
Yeah. I mean, so part of this is I want to make sure that I'm getting this motion, like getting the numbering correct. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so this is yeah, so we'll just use the parcel. So 6A parcel 14 is the right address.
Well, yes, and on the application, it says 6A 14, and then location and description of property, including zoning district, 160 Still River Road.
Okay.
So it's on the application.
Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted. And so essentially with an ADU, you know, they want the building to kind of look like it conforms with the house. Are you doing any exterior work to the existing house, or just kind of leaving it as is?
That would be pretty much left as is. It's fine.
Okay.
The new house it most likely be like the pictures, maybe with a slight modification. That's what David and Lindsay are liking. I think we have that in number. We have a plan.
Yeah, there was a potential house style in there. Very nice looking house. I do like it.
Yeah, it's a rendering. So the number 1 picture shows a garage. There is a garage in the field there right now.
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to ask about.
And
Okay.
And if you look at the potential house style, we would modify that garage to look like similar to the picture.
Okay, so you're keeping the garage on the
Keeping
property
it
as well?
change the roof line a little bit, but it's a good solid garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on the board have questions? Comments?
Not here.
No. So I mean, my personal feeling is I love accessory dwelling units. I think they're a great solution to a lot of the housing problems we have here and throughout the country. I think it's great that you're gonna, be able to have a place where your family can kind of age in place in one area. So I think that's terrific. It looks like a nice design, and I think that property is gonna work out well for it. So with that being said, I will make a motion to approve the special permit for Thomas Broomfield of 146 Still River Road for a detached accessory dwelling unit located at 160 Still River Road, identified on Assessor's Map 6A Parcel 14.
Second.
Okay, I will take a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. Austin Grenner,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
Bob Romer,
Aye.
Michael Gore is aye. Okay, guys, good luck. Hope that all works out for you. And let us know if you have questions.
Well, one question I have, I understand from Todd that there was a 2-week waiting period now if you officially approve it.
Yep, I believe that's correct.
And then after that point, we can talk to the town about what's needed for the permit.
Exactly. At that point, I mean, and I think you can talk before that, at your own risk. But I mean,
Yeah.
no one has come into the meeting to ask comments or complain, so I don't foresee that being an issue.
Yeah, we're not in a
But,
panic to get going, but we want to keep it moving. So
yeah, no, understood. But yeah, there is that 2-week waiting
Sure.
period for appeals.
okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate
Okay.
that.
Thank you
You're
very much.
welcome. Okay, guys.
Good night.
Okay.
Good luck. Good night. Okay, moving on. Our second item is so a discussion about 580 Main Street. 580 Main Street is Bolton Office Park, if you're not familiar with that is. And so that is the site of where that big new apartment complex is going to go. And so essentially what they're doing on that property is taking over a lot of the land where there's kind of existing parking on for the office park. So especially behind it, and they're putting some of the apartment complex there. So they're kind of splitting this property into 2 pieces, I believe. The first being the 40B part for the apartment, and then they're going to reduce the footprint of the office. So the office was originally permitted in 1986 through a special permit from the select board. And now they're basically seeking to modify that special permit. So that hearing for us, for the planning board, is going to happen in our September meeting, I believe. And so what this discussion is about is, as part of their permit filing, their application filing, the applicant at 580 Main Street is talking to 3 separate boards. They're talking to planning board, they're talking to ZBA, the appeals board, and select board. And the reason they're talking to the select board is because in our bylaws, hang on, let me bring this up. So we have a provision in our bylaws that requires the select board to request a site plan approval process for all non-residential uses, including limited business, which is what 580 Main Street is. And so, but then a separate bylaw defines the planning board as the permitting authority. And I think that's because in 1986, the select board was the permitting authority for this stuff. Now the planning board handles all special permits like this, but we still seem to have that old note in the bylaw about the select board. So I will look into that to see if we need to remove that at some point in a meeting. But anyway, basically the select board doesn't really need to do anything in this case, because we are gonna, as we review and handle the special permit process, we'll do everything that a site plan approval process would have done for the select board. So effectively, we're just not making the applicant go to 2 different boards seeking the same thing. Especially when the special permit is kind of a much more stringent process than site plan approval. I can send you guys a document I dug up about what the difference between site plan approval and special permits are, if you're so inclined, but I wouldn't recommend it. So essentially what we're gonna do, if no one has questions, is we'll make a recommendation to the select board that they can waive the 2 requirements that the applicant is asking for. So let me pause there and just see if you guys if anything of what I just said made sense, and if you have questions. No?
No, it makes
Super
sense to me, just, do you know why it was originally put in place in the first place when was there, do you know any of the history behind
I
it?
suspect that there was no planning board back then. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah,
Either that or it was that the select board just was the permitting authority. And as planning board has taken over more of those roles and responsibilities, this is just like one thing in our bylaws that no one ever went and amended and removed from the select board's purview.
yeah,
So that was the most I could figure. This one was tricky. I've been trying to figure out this, kind of all month without a town planner. So this is my best understanding. But the fact that we're gonna go through this whole process with them in September for the special permit, and just to give you guys a preview of that, what the plan is they're gonna tear down about half of the existing Bolton office park and turn that into the parking for the office, whereas they're gonna lose a lot of the other parking around the back and the side of it to the apartment. So I think the applicant feels that the 580 Main Street isn't fully utilized, and so they don't need that much space. Part of that just requires either amending or us restating their original special permit for that building.
yeah, and this project will definitely take us out of the whole 40B. It's big
Yeah.
enough to do this, right?
So the apartment part of it will.
Yeah.
This is the 580 Main Street is kind of that's separate from the apartment piece of it. This is
Okay,
what we're going to talk about in September is strictly the office park and how they're going to reconfigure things when they demolish part of that building.
perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, just one
go ahead.
question. This is actually separate from the traffic study for the actual building, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So that was a good point, is actually one of the other things the 2 things that the applicant, has to ask for per our bylaws. One is called a site plan approval, and the second one is a traffic study. Now the apartment complex and 580 Main Street are going to utilize the same entrance. So, we don't need to do a traffic study in this case, because basically they've already done one for the apartment complex. And also for the Bolton office park, it's an existing office park. We know what's there. It's not like they're increasing the footprint size, they're decreasing the footprint size of it.
Mm-hmm.
So a traffic study is definitely not warranted in that case. And we'll discuss some of those things during our hearing with them, but they certainly don't need to present anything to the select board for that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mike, is the whole issue of construction and demolition part of our purview? I've gotten feedback from the Council on Aging, concern about what's going to go on there, both with the demolition and the construction, about the implication to basically the Council on Aging's facilities as well as the residences.
Yes, so I believe that is within our purview. So part of the special permit is a comprehensive special permit for the entire building and the site. So questions about, I assume you're talking about things like noise mitigation, dust mitigation, things like that. Is that what you're
Yes.
looking for? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that will definitely be part of our special permit process. And
Okay.
to go back to the difference between site plan approval and special permit is a special permit does not have to be granted. So we, as what's called the SPGA, the Special Permit Granting Authority, do not legally have to grant a special permit. So it's a much more stringent process. Whereas the select board, if they did site plan approval, it's really just a way of trying to ask them to conform to things, but there's kind of no teeth to it. if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think it sounds like the special permit process is more of a newer thing that I guess the state level thing that things have moved towards. But either way, I mean, any and all those sorts of questions, we'll definitely want to bring up during the hearing in September. So make note of that. If you have statements from, neighbors, or some of the residents in those buildings, feel free to pass those along and we'll take those into consideration.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I think it would be worthwhile, to your point, to understand not just with these two processes, but other aspects of bylaws and regulations. Which ones have teeth and what are those teeth, and which ones are de facto advisory roles,
Yeah. Yeah.
as you
And
already discussed.
for sure, the special permit like that gives us a lot of authority as a board
Right.
to impose requirements and restrictions, as part of the approval process for that. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to recommend to the select board to waive the site plan approval process and the traffic study requested by 580 Main Street.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote for all those in favor. Austin Grenner,
I
Jim Barr,
Aye.
Bob Romer,
Aye.
and Mike Gore is an aye. Okay, so I will get that note over to the select board tomorrow. Okay, next item of business is meeting with Scott Miller of Haley Ward for peer review services. And it looks like I see Scott there.
Coming up. How about that? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. How you doing,
Excellent.
Scott?
Good, thanks. And I'm with Bethany Ward also from Haley Ward.
Hey, Bethany.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry, Bethany, didn't mean to walk on you. I'm the municipal infrastructure service line director for the company. And Bethany is a vice president with Haley Ward and the regional manager working in the Maynard office. I'm in the Maynard office quite a bit too. I thought what I'd do is, and what Bethany and I would do is just describe our company, and then Bethany can get into our experience with peer reviews and just our approach, unless you have something else that you want to take a different approach with.
I definitely want you to do that. So beforehand, just a little bit of background on kind of, why I asked you to come here. So basically as long as I've been on the board, we had a local peer reviewer out of Leominster named Fred Hamway, and Fred was great. And he did all of our peer review services for us. He retired, I think around 2020, maybe 2021. I don't know if it was COVID related, but it was, he retired. And then we were because it was COVID, we were sort of stuck trying to find someone to pick up a lot of our projects. And so we went with a company out of Boston who someone had a contact with, I think one of our former planners. And they're fine, no real problems, but we never really got to spend the time to do kind of like, talk to a number of people. And one of the things Fred, had said before he left was he recommended, to talk to you, Scott. Spoke very highly of you, and so thought you would be a good fit for Bolton. So just some background. That's why we're asking in here. We've always got projects in town, and we're just kind of looking for, to see what you can offer us.
Good, thanks. No, I know Fred. I did talk to him when he retired. I think it was COVID related, but he was just tired of dealing with COVID and the people. And I think that was the thing. He just didn't feel like it was worth what he was going after. So I dream of him sometimes. Not a bad way to go through life, but he's doing well.
Great.
And I spent some time on the Lancaster Board of Appeals, and we used him quite a bit for our peer review there. And again, he does a great job, and I guess I'll try to show tonight is we're similar to that. That same type of approach that we worked with when he was with the work that he was doing.
Excellent.
Just some background. Is that want me to
Yeah. So go
fly
ahead.
into my
Give
spiel
some
now at this
background
point?
and- yeah, perfect.
We're Bethany and I originally were at Haley and Ward Incorporated. We were in Waltham and then Maynard, Mass. We both live in the area. I'm going to put a plug in for Bethany that she's a Neshoba grad. I don't have that distinction, but
My daughter starts there in the fall, so
nice. Hopefully, can work around the construction.
I know. Right?
The we do primarily municipal work out of the Maynard office. The company, that format of the company goes back to the 1897 when we got our start, and in right around that 2020 timeframe, we combined in with CES Incorporated in out of Bangor, Maine now, and they turned around and changed the name to Haley Ward. So that's the name is stuck with us. The dates changed a little bit, but we have offices along the New England coast and then east and west coast of Florida. I think we're right around 250 people now in the company with all phases of municipal infrastructure work, design work, some land development work, and also supported by environmental wetlands people and electrical engineers and structural engineers and also some water resources groups that are in the Connecticut area.
So full service, it sounds like.
It is,
right?
yes, and that's really what we've been going after compared to what we were when we were just the one company in Maynard. But throughout that time, we've been doing peer review services in Central Mass, Sterling, Lancaster, Clinton. Bethany has got some work in Boxborough with the planner up there, some of their industrial buildings that they're going through a reuse. And I promised her she could do the experience. Well, I'm going to get out of that, but it is, as you say, it is a full service organization, and we've got some good, strong people that are there with PEs, also wetland scientists, and I guess the only thing part of that, the mergers that we've done is Whitman and Bingham was in Leominster, and they've become part of Haley Ward also. So that just, I'm not sure what they've been doing for work in the town, but if they do, we'd have to talk about just to avoid or somehow to work around that. So we don't want to have a conflict of interest with that.
Are they doing work in Bolton, you said?
I don't think, are they? It would be Haley Ward, or I think it's been mostly maybe
I know
Dillis and Roy
Ward,
for the most part.
Yeah, it's mostly Dillis and Roy. Haley Ward did come up for a phosphid for some, at least the water analysis part of it, the stormwater analysis on South Bolton Road.
Okay.
So that was, yeah, I think that was the only one I've seen from from your company.
Yep. Good. So that may work out. We try to avoid each other in the different towns. I get along with them. I've back going a ways where I used to review a lot of their projects in Sterling and Lancaster, and they and we are a good company.
Yeah.
But I guess with that, that's the background on the firm. I'm going to let Bethany pick up from there and just go through our peer review experience and our approach to the work. And she would be the project manager on this in this work, and I would help her out. Also, Autumn Keller is the other person that lives in Lancaster.
Okay.
She's been doing some of the work with a lot of the work with me and Clinton.
Yep.
Okay. And go ahead, Bethany. Sorry.
All right, great. Thanks. Well, I want to thank you for inviting us to present our qualifications. My name's Bethany Ordong. I've been working with Scott for 15 years. Straight out of college, I went to WPI. I grew up in Lancaster and I live in Sterling now. So I'm just going to go through a little bit about our experience. Everything I'm going to say is already in the qualifications package that we sent to you. So we had highlighted 3 towns that we had worked with: Marblehead, Boxborough, and Berlin. But then we also provided this pretty extensive list of projects that we've done in Berlin, Clinton, Lancaster, and Sterling. So we've done many local peer reviews, obviously, commercial, residential, industrial. We've done it on behalf of multiple boards and departments, ZBA, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, local water and sewer departments. We understand that each entity has its own purview for review, but often there are overlaps between the reviews that need to be done by these different entities. And we also understand that you have to account for the public concerns, the public comments in these types of reviews. So sometimes it's more than just a review per the bylaws and regulations, and many of the local projects are nuanced. So one project that I did want to talk about just a little bit more was the Town of Boxborough project that we had presented. So this one in particular, they didn't have any bylaws that spoke specifically to this type of industry coming into town. It was something that they were working on. It was a great opportunity for the town to get this business to come and set up shop and reuse one of the buildings that was unoccupied. But there was a lot of concerns from the public, and it was somewhat controversial of a review process, and there was a lot of back and forth. But we were also able to kind of assist the town planner, guide them through this process, help them answer the public's questions and concerns. And we also were able to bring some expert information and review for them. And that's because we have such a deep bench now with all of the additional offices and expertise that we have.
Yeah.
That one in particular, we had someone with experience in public health reviews, which was really, really useful.
Now I want to know, what was the business?
Oh, yeah. The two businesses were Aranta Bio and Vibalogics. It was actually really interesting. One of them manufactures, I'm pretty sure one of them manufactures vaccines. And it's kind of like this rotating whatever, you can like order vaccines for them to manufacture, and they'll, tweak their production line for it. And the other one was actually going into pharmaceutical grade probiotics. Which I thought was really cool too.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's pretty much covers the experience and the things that I wanted to highlight there. We also really understand the importance of reviewing the infrastructure in a lot of these proposals, because if the town's sort of inheriting this maintenance for work that's being installed by a developer, you want to really make sure that it's up to your standards, and you're not, taking responsibility for something that's going to put a lot of extra work on your town staff.
Yes.
So now I'm going to speak a little bit to our typical approach for a peer review. So typically the process is we'll review whatever submittal materials you have for us, and we'll review them per the local bylaws, regulations, and standard practices. We typically will provide a comment letter for the board ahead of the meeting. And we also try to contact and go through the letter with the design engineer. And we try to do that all before the first meeting, just so that everyone's prepared to actually have a productive discussion. And it's not like, the meeting's not the first time everyone's seen these comments.
Yeah.
So we try to go through the comments and the issues that we have with the design engineer. Of course, if you don't want us to contact them directly and work through that, we don't have to. We've just found it to be a much smoother process for everyone.
So to that point, Bolton's a small town. We, up until now, we've been now we're a 0 town planner shop, but like we've been a 1 town planner shop. We did fund an assistant town planner who's going to take on some of the administrative stuff. So the department's growing a little bit, but the town planner is definitely stretched thin, and having someone that's willing to kind of work with the applicant, the developer, to take any burden that we can take off of our staff is, that's awesome. Like, we would love that.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That is something that we typically try to work into our process.
Okay, great. But sorry, I cut you off there.
No, that's all right. So typically we'll go through 2 rounds of this sort of comment exchange. If it's a pretty simple and straightforward project, the first round is just presenting our comments and giving the developer, or whatever that reviewed entity is, an opportunity to respond to them. And then the second round is essentially just us confirming that they've responded to the comments and met whatever additional concerns or asks that we have for them. We typically attend the meetings. We don't have to, that's really at your option, but we have found that it's more useful for us to be able to answer the board's questions directly. We can field questions from the public if you think that that's appropriate. And also, if needed, we can help you kind of steer the discussion back towards the regulations, or, whatever you're trying to keep it on track with.
So honestly, that's the piece that we've been missing most is not having a peer review be in our meetings. And that was something that Fred Hamway just excelled at. He would, anytime that his work had been done, he would come to that meeting and he would, talk to the board, talk to residents, and that really helped facilitate, making things go smoother in the meetings.
Oh,
So,
okay, great. Then you know
very glad to
exactly
hear
what I'm
that.
talking about.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to highlight for you. Again, thanks
Okay.
for inviting us to, present our information and our qualifications, and we'd really like to work in Bolton.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it would be a really excellent fit. I don't know if you were on the call at the very beginning of it, but we did just hire a new town planner. She's
Oh, I
starting
did hear that. Mhm.
in the beginning of September. And so I will be kind of doing the info sessions with her, and I'm definitely gonna, bring this up as part of it. And I believe your fee schedule was included as part of that packet, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So,
And
Scott, go ahead.
What we can do on that is once we get an application in, it makes a lot more sense to look at the application. We'll make a budget estimate of how many hours we think the reviews, the meetings will be, write that out of what that scope is, and give you a not to exceed amount, that you can, if you have, to look at what you have for funds from the applicant to make sure those are set aside. I don't want to get to the point where we're putting in a lot more effort than you were expecting.
Yeah.
And just make sure that helps with the money.
Yeah, no, we
move
do
it through.
appreciate that. I mean, that's a big part of it, is that, all of the reviews all cost money, and, we also want to be, cognizant of the developers and their funds, and we don't want to be constantly going back to replenish the 53G accounts.
And
so
with that, if it gets in, if it gets into 3 and 4 meeting cycles, and it's just we're not getting anywhere, we will come in with an updated cost of what more it's going to take for that review, and sometimes that moves the project along better.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Do you need to sign a contract with the town, or is it kind of just we would engage you on a per project basis? How does that sort of work?
And have a contract put together, just like a master services contract. I'm trying to think it's probably the best thing to have that in place, and then each project then comes in. There's no obligation with signing that. It's mostly just declaring these are the ground rules we're working with, and then for each project we give you a task letter that says we'll do this scope for this project for this not to exceed amount. And they do tend to run their time and materials. We don't do a lump sum. It's just we can't establish the scope up front, and I don't think it's right to apply that to this type of work.
No, I understand. So I think well, first off, let me open up. Anyone else on the board have questions for Bethany or Scott?
I just
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead, Austin.
I just had a very quick question. So I might have missed this in the qualifications doc. Thanks, Scott and Bethany. I appreciate the presentation here. Do you have any information about like the turnaround time or responsiveness? I think that's been something that has been a bit of a sticking point for us in recently.
Oh, well, I don't know if we specifically speak to it in here, but typically we're able to turn around the reviews within one meeting cycle of when we get it. So I think it's typically 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the community. But yeah, we definitely do. We do whatever we can to make sure that we have something for the next meeting that applicant is scheduled for.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
We also, if I can jump onto that too, it tends to be the same person all the way through, that the employees, the peer reviewers we have have multiple capacities. So we're not dealing with a team, trying to put a team together to respond to a meeting. If we do get beyond anything, in the case with the Boxborough project, we needed help from industrial hygiene person. We brought them in, and I think the board probably became more familiar with him than he's still Haley Ward, but he was the real did most of the work, and Bethany guided the planner and him through that process.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, one comment. Scott and I have never seen each other, but boy, we've talked. In putting together the original water and sewer recommendations as part of the master plan, we were looking into public water supplies and what the cost and issues associated with local and regional public water supplies for Bolton would be. And Scott provided a great deal of insight and experience to that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
It's fun to do some design work once in a while, get away from the paperwork and do some pure design. So.
And it was very responsive.
Good.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah. So Scott, I think the way it'll work is, once the new planner's in place, I can probably make an introduction between you guys, and in the meantime, you and I can kind of work through anything we need to do to kind of get the ball rolling with that. But no, I really appreciate you both coming out. Thanks for the presentation, and this sounds like it'd be a good fit.
Great, thank you. Good luck with the planner. Sounds like a bold step. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Okay, take care, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right. Moving along. So our next discussion item is updates for a potential town meeting article for Century Mill Estates. So back in July, we talked about the potential to bring a article to September town meeting, the special town meeting, funding, some of the road work that needed to be done for acceptance based on being able to collect money through land court auctions from Andy. So I've spent the last month or so kind of doing a deep dive into this and talking with a number of people. And so far I've run into two problems with it. The first is that we're nowhere near as close to getting any money from land court auctions as I thought we were. I was sort of under the impression this was something that was happening by the end of this year, but it's realistically something that wouldn't happen until probably a year from now. So big discrepancy in the timeline. The second issue that we ran into, and I mentioned this in the last meeting, was this Supreme Court ruling of Tyler v. Hennepin. And it's really unclear whether, it's cloudy whether the town would be able to keep any excess money they took after tax withholdings from any land court sales. So because of those two issues, that means that if we were to bring an article to special town meeting, we'd have no way of possibly guaranteeing that the town would recover any of that money. So because of that, I'm not comfortable bringing forward an article to a special town meeting. So we can talk about, kind of what some of the other next steps would be, but I wanted to put that out there first, that, and just get a feeling from the board if you guys agree. The reason being that, we don't want to ask the town to foot the bill for this work. So let me pause there and see what the board feels.
Mike, looking at the longer term, I understand that, and I agree with your recommendation to delay presenting it to the town until we know a whole lot more and have substantially reduced the risk of hanging it on the taxpayers. But is there a perspective of, even with the Supreme Court judgment, about holding all of the results of a land auction. Is there a way that we can go back and once we've established what the cost to complete is, or whatever has to be done to accept it, to go back and, perish the thought, sue the developer for that?
You mean have the town sue for that?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, now we're getting way out of my depth. And I would certainly, what I would say is we wouldn't want to put the town in that position where now we're, trying to fund a lawsuit to reclaim funds.
Right.
So let's put a pin in that one for a second, because that'll kind of dovetail into some of the other options that we might have. Jim or Austin, you guys have thoughts on this?
Does the article before the town, does that have to be for a particular date, or can it be sort of contingent upon receiving monies from land court? Can we word it in such a way that once those monies are received, we can, essentially move forward with the process?
It's an interesting question, but I don't believe we can, because the warrant article is ultimately a funding article. And you're basically asking for a specific amount of money, and then you'll say where the funds are coming from. So the funds would come from free cash, or the funds would come from, a bond allocation, something like that. So I don't think we're able to do it like that, to word it like that.
I see. Okay.
And I especially wouldn't want to do something like that if, we're a year out from potentially reclaiming any funds. Like that's really the biggest sticker right now, is that it's the process isn't even close. And it's very possible that the process may not complete. I mean, if the developer pays his back taxes, then that whole process goes away. And so essentially the state gives people a long period of time in order to pay off taxes that are owed before any land is seized. Right. And so that's kind of where the year process comes into it.
How much in back taxes is currently owed by the developer?
I don't have the specific number, but it's multiple hundreds of thousands.
I see. Okay.
So in terms of the alternatives for an end game here, assuming the town doesn't pay for completing it and the residents really and justifiably would like the town to accept it, then it's up to them to finance it.
Well, so what I have been doing for the past few weeks is looking into this process called a betterment. And a betterment is something like if you're in a city that has public sewer, but your road isn't attached to the sewer, right? The town can come in and attach houses to the sewer, and then assess the cost of that onto each of the property's real estate taxes. And they're able to kind of spread that out over some period of years to make it an easier way to pay it. So I've just kind of started looking into this. Again, it's kind of difficult to get answers on things when we didn't have a planner here. But the betterment seems like it would be a good process to go through. The betterment process doesn't require a town meeting vote. That's kind of one of the big things. So we don't need to pre-allocate the money from that. But I'm trying to get more information on that. I'm hoping that the new town planner has some kind of thoughts or understanding about that. So that's one way to do it, is through a betterment. The second way is, in the spring, we may have more clarity on where we are in the process. Excuse me. Where we are in the tax process, to understand what other options would be. The main point I wanted to stress tonight, though, is that I personally can't support an article that's just asking the town to pay the money without having some recourse to recoup it.
Yep.
I'm aligned with that as well.
Yeah,
So I think we may have one CME resident on the line here. I'll open this up to any questions or discussions.
so just to clarify the betterment deal,
Mhm.
that would amount to sort of time payment carried by the town to better the roads for acceptance of the roads under the subdivision, with an assessment on a time payment basis.
Yes, so it would take the, it would take the cost of the work and divide it up amongst the residents of CME, spread out over some number of years. I don't know what that is. And then they would, it would be their taxes that increased and paid for the work to be done, with the understanding that, like the name says, the betterment, that the roads and their properties are being bettered through that action. Now, the thing I'm unclear of is how that process gets initiated. I believe it's, I don't know if a certain percentage of the residents need to vote in favor of that at some sort of meeting. But I do know it's not a town meeting, issue. It's actually, I believe the betterment is done by the select board.
And
So,
just to be
Go.
100% clear, the cost of improving the roadway does come from the residents by increasing their taxes over some amount of time. But the money comes from them, not from the town.
correct. It comes from the residents of the development. So
I see.
as opposed to the entire town.
Okay.
Right.
It's a payment plan.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay. So one last question, Michael, is that sort of like a stopgap until, I guess, the land court comes through, and then whatever improvements have been made up until then are sort of paid for by them, and the remainder of those improvements are paid for by the town? Is it just kind of a way to get us to land court?
No.
Okay.
So this would be,
Instead of
the betterment would be a way of finalizing the road. Like, all the work would be done through the betterment process.
okay.
And we wouldn't even consider the land court issue after that. The land court stuff was kind of floated as, originally someone saying, hey, we may be able to reclaim money from the developer. And as part of that process, we may be able to use some of those reclaimed funds to pay for work that needs to be done. So that was kind of how we went down that path originally. It's, and like I said, it's kind of, there's a lot of unknowns with it. And so due to that, it's not an ideal plan. I think if we were way further along in that process, I mean, maybe we could talk about it then. But if we wanted to do something more near term, getting some more information on what exactly the betterment process is, I think would be a good plan moving forward. We had some questions out to town council about how the process worked. So what I'm hoping is to get some more information for a future meeting, and also, again, with the new town planner, getting her input on how that would work.
Yeah, that sounds good. My last question is just if they were to vote on this betterment as the way to go, the residents of CME, does that then mean if the agreement is in place, then the town takes over ownership of the road?
No, I don't think the town wouldn't take over ownership until the roads are accepted. I think the formal process still needs to kind of be in place and go through for that. I don't know that 100%, but I believe that would be the case.
But along those lines, it would be interesting to find out, with that time payment of the assessment required to upgrade the roads to be accepted by the town, how long would that take? Are these folks going to be on the hook to do that and to maintain the roads in the meantime?
Well, so maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but the once the work is done and the road is accepted, the road is a public way,
Right.
Whether or not the residents have finished paying off the betterment is, I don't think plays into that.
Oh, okay, so the town would go ahead, once they had agreed on the betterment and the assessments and the time period, would go ahead and upgrade the roads.
Yeah, once the work is completed.
Oh, that's
Right, yeah,
fine.
yeah, so basically, yeah, when the betterment is in place, right, and look, I'm making up numbers, so let's just say it's 5 years, I don't know, maybe it's 10 years, I honestly have no idea. Once the betterment's in place, and again, we're waiting for the cost estimate from Niche. Last I heard, they're about halfway done with what that estimate is gonna be. Yeah. And so, once we have that number, it's very useful for us to still have this number. So that's the other thing to kind of take away from this. The 1,500 that the developer gave to get this number is very important to us to to figure out how much is required, and so that would feed right into the betterment process. Right. But as far as like the acceptance of it, that would happen under the normal course of, the work is completed, it overwinters, and it gets accepted at the town.
Mike, is the new town planner aware yet of the situation, or?
I mean, not in the most specific details, but
Yeah.
just that there's open subdivisions with.
Yeah. I'd like to hear her input on it, obviously. Just
I'm hoping
yeah,
that she comes in with some ideas.
it's a tough situation.
Very much. Okay. As part of this, I do want to make a formal motion to disapprove sponsoring an article at special town meeting, though. So I am going to make a motion to disapprove the planning board sponsoring an article funding road work at Century Mills Estate at the special town meeting in September.
Hey, I'm sorry, Mike. I just joined late. Was there open discussion for residents to speak for this?
Yeah, I asked a few minutes ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was getting text. I'm in the Colorado Rockies. I just found out things were changing, so I just joined.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if you heard what we talked about.
I got the gist by text.
Okay.
I can't say that I know exactly everything, so if I say things out of turn, I apologize.
Let me just give you a quick recap.
Okay.
Then, basically, so the part of the of funding an article at special town meeting was that the town was going to be able to recover that money through land court auction, basically.
Yep.
And it just turns out that we are nowhere near where I thought we were in that process. I was under the impression that was something happening towards the end of this year. It's realistically wouldn't be a year from now. So there's that, and then there's also the Supreme Court ruling on the Tyler v. Hennepin that it makes it really unclear at the moment whether we even be able to use those funds for this purpose. So that turns out to be a bummer.
Yeah.
So, essentially, I don't want the planning board to sponsor an article that has no guarantee of recouping the funds, from the developer. It would be asking the general taxpayers to pick that up, and I think that's a bad precedent. So it's definitely not ideal. What I was saying though was that in the past few weeks I've been researching this thing called the betterment, which is basically where similarly the town could do the work and assess the value to the residents' property taxes. So this would be something that the CME residents would have to agree to. We could fund it. It does not need to go to town meeting. And basically the work could proceed, similar to how we stated before.
Meaning that CME residents would pay for it through taxes, additional taxes, not the $1 million a year we pay currently.
Correct.
And then we would have to recoup the money from the lawsuit that the town is going to have against Andy. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, the town doesn't have a lawsuit against Andy.
I mean, the land court stuff.
So the land court is separate from all of this. Kind of what I was saying is the land court is no guarantee of anything. It's basically if the town forecloses and claims properties through land court, the town would be eligible to use that money to pay for any back taxes that are owed. So that's the main thing that land court does. The question we had was whether we can also use any additional funds from that for paying for things like this.
Okay,
Okay,
that
now-
part I didn't understand when you said something about the Supreme Court. So I'm going to say that I don't know what that means, but
So,
I would say in the
so
last call that there was no discussion on timetables of recovering money. So if it's a year out or 2 years out, that from my understanding, that was irrelevant to the process. I didn't think it was going to happen quickly anyways. The second part I don't know anything about. So if that's really a concern, then maybe that's something to change. But I think the duration of time till land court is able to be completed should be kind of irrelevant to the point that was made last call, like how we were trying to proceed and why Andy gave $1,500 to move forward.
So I don't disagree. Well, I mean, I don't agree with that. Basically, the bringing an article to town meeting and having it have some near guarantee, not 100%, but that the town would recoup that money, right? I mean, that's the only way that I would bring that article to town meeting. That was what I talked about in the last meeting.
Okay, I just didn't know about duration. So the betterment piece, I can say that I would be opposed to that completely, and I would guess that the residents would as well. But I'm not going to speak for everybody. The one thing I would say, I guess we're in a tough spot, right? So the residents and the town, I guess the town doesn't, I mean, I don't know specifically, but I think everybody on the board is aware that a large group of residents have hired counsel against Andy already. And there's certainly discussions about where the town sits in this as well. And I've been hopeful that the position that you presented last call was really going to be fruitful. That's was really something that I was glad to hear the town was taking some other stance to try to make this happen logically in a way that wouldn't further, I don't know, be a cost to the residents. And it seemed like because of the bond and having so many trouble through managing it with Andy, that the town was taking some responsibility to try to see what else you could do, something new. And I appreciated that position. If this blows up, which it sounds like you're about to make a motion not to do it, I can't speak for what the residents would do legally. I do know that there's been discussions about what our other options are. I don't think saying, in addition to the $1 million that you pay a year in taxes, we're going to ask you to pay another $75,000 so we can do all these driveway reconstructions that the new DPW director wants changed, even though the last one didn't say it needed to be changed. So I think there's going to be arguments against what the new DPW director report said versus the old, because I think he was overstepping, but we didn't make that argument because the town was going to do the work anyways. But if we're going to go back to the residents paying or doing something that's short of the town taking some responsibility here, I think that report has to come back up. And I think there's many people in our neighborhood, including construction workers, that do not agree with his report. I know you didn't want to have that discussion last call, but that's going to be a discussion that's going to be brought up by the residents. And whether it's through legal counsel or not, that's what I would suspect would happen going forward. It's just my thought. I'm not saying anything definitively. I just want the planning board to understand where a big group of residents feel that they wanted to move forward earlier. And your proposal was really a great way that I thought would get us through this without any legal counsel from this resident's perspective towards the town. And I don't know if that's going to be the way it will move forward now.
No, understood. And
Hey, Mike.
Go ahead.
I don't think everybody's up to date on the Supreme Court decision and the potential implications to recovering money through land court, which is, I think, very significant to this conversation. So you want to very briefly summarize that and where things in?
I mean, so as I understand it, the Hennepin ruling basically said that towns can't keep above and beyond what is owed in back taxes. So they can't sell someone's property and kind of keep the excess profits from that beyond what's owed to the town. Now, I would make the argument that in this case, the developer owes money to the town for various other things besides taxes, but it's very unclear right now whether that's how it would be interpreted.
Yeah. I obviously don't know it either, and I think any legal position from the residents would not have anything to do with the land court piece. It would have more to do with the town's handling of this over the last 12, 15 years, or however many years it's been.
And that's fine. I mean, what I'll always go back to is that, right, the town has no legal obligation to accept the road. So, I understand the implications that you're making, but the town's going to be in kind of better footing because there is no obligation to accept the road. I understand it's been a frustrating process. I wish that this had worked out, and it's possible this may still work out.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to bring up is that I'm not going to bring an article to September town meeting because the funding of it is so unclear.
Got it.
Right.
No, I understand that. I understand
And-
it. Ideally, we all know that we're in the position mostly because of the developer, and we just, I'm not going to recast the history, so that's fine. You can make that motion if you want. I just wanted to just make a few points there, and I don't understand.
I appreciate it. I was hoping that you were going to join so we could kind of discuss through this.
Yeah.
And again, we can, if the betterment process, and again, that's what a lot of other towns do, is kind of some of the research I've done. But if that's not acceptable to the residents, right, then, again, maybe we look in the spring and say, where are we on the tax situation? Do we have any other clarity on the Hennepin ruling? Things like that. I mean, that's how we'd have to do it.
I would think, and again, I don't know any precedents behind this, but I don't know enough about the betterment process, but this is my very novice view of understanding it. I mean, I would rather something where we would get a tax abatement on a regular taxes and re-vector our tax dollars to finish the road. And I also, again, I'm just going to stress that I think that the DPW report was way too long and all those pieces shouldn't be required. But I think the amount of work should be less than what he had stipulated in his report. And I think if we were able to get an abatement along with some sort of betterment piece where that it equals out, then yes, I don't think there would be a problem with that. But what I heard from you is above and beyond what the assessed tax would be already.
I mean, but again, to go back to the, I know the residents aren't happy about that, and you are seeking abatements, but again, there's no obligation. You live on a private road right now, as far as the town is concerned. And I understand that it doesn't change your taxes, but in my mind, that's the same as going to a school committee meeting and saying, hey, I don't have kids in the school. I want 60% of my taxes back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just not relevant. And I understand it's frustrating that you pay taxes and don't get the services, but there are other private roads in Bolton, right? There's private developments that, the 55 plus community over in 117, that's a private road. All those people pay taxes, but we don't, the town doesn't go and plow their roads.
Yeah. I can't say I know enough about it, but the whole bonding process was meant to protect from this. And we got in this position because of, in my mind, partially because, mostly obviously because of the developer, but partially because we were trying to push the bond through to get things done all the way down, letting him pass different stipulations along the way that he should have had checkpoints to be held accountable that were let to fly, to be the point that we're at now, where we made it a long ways down the path of getting the road accepted. A lot of things done, but now there's no bond money and there's no protections, and we're at a spot where now the residents being asked for money when the bond money was supposed to be meant to do that. And we know that there was certain agreements to release bond money for certain things that were discussed and historically done, that the town wasn't comfortable with, but agreed to do. And we are where we are now. I guess we need to assess that.
The bond release process is, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but the bond release process is it's an infuriating process. And, legally, the town, when work gets completed, the bond needs to get released. Now, in this case, it was, it was double unique because the bond was set, however many years ago, before I was on the board, right? And so now we're talking about trying, we were never able to go back and get additional bonding. It's a frustrating process. I fully understand it. So I wish it had worked out differently. That being said,
I'll listen to your motion. I'll try to understand more about what your betterment piece is and that Supreme Court thing, and obviously the folks that started litigation, they'll get word of this and see what they want to do. But I just wanted to just talk it through a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, this is Shad Bauer on Mill Pond Road. Sorry, I tried to talk earlier. My computer wouldn't allow my mic to turn on, so I jumped down on my phone. But with regards to bringing up the betterment process, you made the analogy of bringing in the sewers into a neighborhood. Okay, Mike, so you remember that. And then I'm just curious, what is the process for a betterment? Now, is that initiated by, because you said a betterment doesn't even need to go to the select board. It could be done right at the planning board stage.
No.
How is that initiated? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I understand is the betterment, what I said is doesn't need to go to town meeting.
Okay.
Which is kind of the important part, right? And to kind of go back to the, basically why I don't want to bring an article to September town meeting is if we brought an article asking to pay for, road work that had no guaranteed funding, it's going to be, my feeling would be strongly rejected by the town, strongly rejected probably by members of the planning board, strongly rejected by the select board. So, we don't want to bring an article that isn't going to pass. So that's kind of where the logic comes from. Okay, back to the betterment process. Again, I'm really just trying to do some of this research and understand it. And so what my understanding so far is a betterment is there's somehow coordination between the neighborhood and the select board. And if a certain percentage of the neighborhood voted in favor of it, it's a simple vote by the select board to basically assess the additional monies required for the work. John, you mentioned the 1,500. It's like the 1,500 in my mind is money Andy owed so that we can understand the work that needs to be done to complete the roads. Like that's just part of this whole process. So, we don't yet have that number. Mitch says they're about halfway done, but that number is going to be very important for lots of things. That number will be important for the residents to understand, what it would cost and for the town. So again, as kind of as far as the betterment process goes, my understanding is it doesn't involve town meeting, which is good because town meeting happens once or twice a year. And it can be, funded and worked on kind of separate from that. So that's sort of what I know about the betterment right now.
All right. So who initiates that? Just out of curiosity, from what you understand.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like if it's, I mean, obviously, like I think if this is something that, when we get more information on this, and I don't know if you guys heard early on, we were able to hire a new town planner. She starts in September. So, hopefully she'll be able to give some input on this as well. This is not my forte, as you may have noticed. But what I would think is it would be some sort of vote, probably through your HOA or something, where you had a majority of people who were in favor of doing it, and then we would coordinate with the select board to figure out how to move forward with it.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, and I know John, you're not happy with paying the additional taxes. I mean, one thing to think about, and again, it's early, but like if whatever the cost of the betterment is less than you're paying for, private snow removal right now, right? When you cost it out over some number of years, it may be more financially beneficial.
That was going to be my exact point, Michael. Thank you for making. I think it needs to be weighed against the current costs for road maintenance. So it might actually work out in the residents' favor, net in terms of the net amount that they pay out of pocket. So I think it actually might be a solution, but we should really investigate how long these betterments can go for.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. But I would go back to my one statement that I think the DPW report was too much, and many people that I live with who are construction workers as well didn't agree with the report and are looking into it as well separately. So if there was a betterment piece that was being presented for the full report, I would hope I assume Niche's estimate is going to be itemized to us to a point where you can say this is X, this is Y, this is Z, and the residents can say, and I'm not saying the residents are going to be right or win any discussion about this point, but say, all right, of your items 1 through 30, these 10 don't make sense, and this is why, and I think you're overstepping. I think this is not required, and the last DPW director said it was fine, and that's why we move forward, or whatever the reasons are. I think the DPW report is going to come into play if we even, as residents, are open to the betterment direction. And I just want the planning board to be open to that discussion, because I know you didn't want to even discuss the report last time, which I get.
I mean, so here's one thing I'll say about especially the driveways. I mean, I think what the concerns on the driveways are is that it's water egressing out onto the road, which is a subdivision violation, basically. So that's, I mean, that is where that comes from. You know, you referenced a previous DPW report, and so I went back after our last meeting and I tried to find as much documentation as I've had on this, which is substantial. And the only item I was able to find was a 2019 punch list. Okay, and that punch list was put together by Erica, right? So our town planner, 3 town planners ago, and it included, it had no comments from DPW on it. It was a list that she had put together, and some of it was administrative, but I do not believe at any point the DPW director had done a full inspection of the property to put a report together. So, and her 2019 report said right on the top of it, draft. Okay, and so it was never like a fully completed thing. I know she shared that with Andy, and Andy did some work towards it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that was ever a complete list, like, a complete list of everything that needed to be done.
Yeah.
For the roads.
Okay. Yeah. You could be right. I think Andy's position was everything that was done from a road construction perspective was overseen by Niche, as well as whoever the town representative was. I don't know if it was DPW director or somebody else.
Yeah.
And no driveways were called into question during the paving. Everything was done. Everything was oversight. I mean, obviously the report has real issues. Some of the water coming down is just broken irrigation lines. So I don't know if that's actually an issue with the driveway or an issue with irrigation. And so it didn't call out what the driveway issues were from the report. It was very vague.
I do agree with that. And so part of that was Niche was going to connect with DPW to sort of better understand what the problems were.
Okay.
And there's ways to mitigate that stuff. I mean, I don't think it means like rip up the entire driveway and redo it. It's just there's ways to mitigate things.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
let's see what it comes out to. I mean, there's no point to argue it now. You're trying to find solutions. I appreciate that. And let's see what comes of it. I certainly, I'm okay. I appreciate the discussion.
I know it's a tough situation, John. I know it's not where anyone wants to be at the moment. So,
yeah.
But that being said, I did, just because this is the selectmen who need to put together the warrant, I do want to make a formal recommendation for the planning board to not sponsor an article for September. So I make a motion to disapprove the planning board putting forward a article at special town meeting in September to fund any road work at Century Mills Estates.
Second.
All those in favor say aye by roll call vote. Austin Grenner.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
Bob Romer.
Aye.
And Mike Gore is aye. Okay, guys. Sorry, I'm hoping that we can find something that works out. we'll keep looking into the betterment stuff, and I'll keep in touch with you guys. John, enjoy the Rockies. It's awesome out there.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Sorry you had to step away from that, but
No problem.
okay, guys. Have a
Good
good night.
summer, guys. Bye.
Okay, moving right along. Okay, couple administrative things. We have some minutes to accept. So I sent out the minutes last week. Did everyone receive those? Take a look.
Yep.
at them.
Yep.
Okay, so any questions or comments? No. So I will make a motion to approve the planning board minutes from May 24th, June 14th, June 28th, July 19th, and July 26th.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye by roll call vote. Austin Grenner.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
Bob Romer.
Aye.
And Mike Gore is also an aye. Okay. The last item of business is some more driveway surety approvals. So I was trying to find the list of when we did like a dozen of these back in the winter or spring, and I don't believe these were included. So the someone in the town just wanted to make sure that we had a vote on these specific driveways. So I'm going to do these as 3 separate items, just to keep everything on the up and up. So I will make a motion to approve the driveway surety for 397 Old Bay Road.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Austin
Aye.
Brenner,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
Bob Romer,
Aye.
Mike Gore is aye. I will make a motion to approve the driveway surety for 186 Farm Road.
Second.
All those in favor say aye by roll call vote. Austin Brenner,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
Bob Romer,
Aye.
Mike Gore is aye. I will make a motion to approve the driveway surety for 443 Still River Road.
Second.
All those in favor say aye by roll call vote. Austin Brenner,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
Bob Romer,
Aye.
and Mike Gore is an aye. Okay, guys, we made it. Any,
Thank you. Well done.
thank you. Anything else that anyone wants to talk about?
Yeah, I think we ought to extend a vote of thanks to Kristen Zena.
Yeah, Kristen's been great. Jenny Jacobson's been great. I'm probably forgetting other people. I've got so many emails right now. Yeah, I've worked a lot with Don over this, but yeah, everyone in town has been great. It's very clear how important the role of town planner is in things happening in here, and not only that, but easing the workload on us as a board. So yeah, I'm very excited to have Pam start and help us out.
Well, Mike, thanks for all the research, though. I mean, this has been new territory.
Yeah. And I kind of wish we had figured out the betterment stuff before we'd even kind of floated the other thing. Although, I mean, they're not going to be happy with, some of them may not be happy with the betterment, but like we talked about, it may be more cost effective in the long run. So
yeah,
we'll just have to see how it goes. But,
yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. It's, total cost divided by number of houses divided by number of years. It could be 10 years for all we know. And sort of weighed against the maintenance of the road, it could be a fraction of the cost to maintain per year. So
yeah,
I think it's still a solution we should look into.
Definitely. So that is the plan, is to kind of keep looking at that. There was definitely a sense of urgency in that July meeting about trying to get, if we were going to try to do something for September, and unfortunately it didn't work out. So.
Yeah, and I think everybody has to realize that road maintenance is not just plowing the road. For a 5 to 10 year period, resurfacing, infrastructure, all the other stuff, which is way more expensive.
Yeah, and that property, I mean, the more I look at that property, because of how intertwined, they have their own public water supply, their own irrigation system, because of how intertwined that's going to be with the public road. It's very complicated. I mean, looking at it, I'm kind of almost surprised that they ever wanted to make it, you know, that whoever originally approved this on the planning board wanted to make this be a public road. I mean, there's just a lot of, you know, intertwined systems there. But and you know, if the road's accepted, we have to, you know, the town has to accept a lot of those things. So
And I think as time goes on with subdivisions, when we start talking about public water supply and ultimately public sewer systems, that the way that the infrastructure is installed in terms of ownership and maintainability needs to be very carefully thought out in the beginning.
yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. And now you know, I don't know if we're gonna see another subdivision of the size of CME in town. Maybe not. Just there's all sorts of hidden land in town. But yeah, those are the sorts of questions that we definitely need to be on top of as this kind of goes forward. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, incidentally, I think Mr. Miller has a lot of insight into that.
So I didn't realize that you had worked with him for master plan. Was he just kind of, you were bouncing ideas off him, or was he hired as a consultant or something?
No, I talked to a lot of people about public water supplies and groundwater conditions, you know, rock wells, gravel wells, where the aquifers were, what it would cost. And he had just done the extended public water supply in Lancaster, which is actually portions of it were done in Bolton. So he had an enormous amount of insight into that, and also had a lot of suggestions about, you know, what the costs were. Actually came up with an estimate for land like Bolton, and also made very good suggestions about, well, if you're going to dig all those trenches, the price of excavation and refill is many times the price of putting the infrastructure in. You need
bury those electric cables.
You know, it a lot of good suggestions.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so I came away from that conversation really, you know, really psyched to you know, we bring them on for a project too and see how they work out. But I really like their approach. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it hurts not having, you know, I know Austin and Bob, this is before your time, but when Fred was our PE, it was really helpful having him at meetings, and kind of talking everyone through, you know, what he saw and what he did. So
he was thorough.
He really was. So I'm hopeful that we can get something similar from Haley Ward. It really sounds positive. So I'm glad you had good experiences with him, Bob.
Yeah, I certainly have.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Not here.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Guys, I appreciate you on tonight.
Thank you.
That went well. Thanks.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
job, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.